Close enough to 5:45. We'll call the meeting to order. And start with roll call.
Riddle Swanson, Mark Hillman, Angie Skillings here, Bill Palmer,
Here.
Abe Smith,
Here.
Dominique Stewart here, Rachel Henderson here, Dale Welke,
Here.
Amber Kersey here.
We have a quorum, and let's stand for the pledge of allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And our mission statement, the school district of the Menomonie area, by embracing the unique needs and using the strengths of our diverse community, is dedicated to preparing all students to become lifelong learners, caring individuals, and responsible citizens. Are there any proposed revisions to the agenda order? Seeing none. We have no recommendations and commendations this evening. Move on to our highlight on youth.
Yes, welcome back, everyone. First board meeting since the start of the school year, and I'm very pleased to report that it's been a very good start to the school year. I'd like to thank all of our teachers, our staff members, our principals, and directors for all of their good work and planning and getting our students back into the school routine. I'd also like to thank Menomonie Transportation. It's a very heavy lift to make sure that people and all the bus routes get coordinated and students get to school on time and people are communicated with. So it's just been a great start to the school year. A number of student activities have been going on for weeks, even previous to the official start of school, and I'm sure Katrina will share some of that in the student representative report. But the highlight on youth, I'm not going to read through the whole thing, but you can see that transition into the school year, and especially transition for our new students coming, 8th graders moving into 9th grade, 5th graders moving into 6th grade, and then our kindergarten and elementary students. We really prioritize trying to have a soft landing and making sure that students have an opportunity to become acquainted with their classmates, their teachers, and all of our staff members. So as you can see, the high school has the example of the Link crew. The middle school expanded their transitional efforts this summer with their 8th grade core mentors. And then as you can see in the elementary updates, a lot of routine building, a lot of bulletin boards, team meetings, school meetings, and just a number of hands-on wonderful activities. So we're very excited to be back. Thank you, board members, for all that you have done to help prepare for this school year. And I think it's going to be a great year in the SDMA.
All right, and up next we have student representative communication. We have an open familiar face.
Hi, hello, I'm Katrina Drozdowski, and I'm the student body parliamentarian at the high school, and I'm here to provide you with some important updates. First up is Homecoming Week, which is happening from September 18th to the 22nd. Our theme this year is USA, It's a Stay Nation. We've got a great lineup of activities planned, including wall decorations, a video of skits, a games assembly, and coronation assembly. And I'm going to talk about the dress-up days for the week. On Monday, it's workforce. Tuesday is barbecue dad versus soccer mom. Wednesday is class color day. Thursday is decades. And on Friday, we have school spirit. The homecoming parade is on the 22nd at 4 p.m. It's open to everyone, and it will be a very fun event. Now for information from a club at the high school. The students in environmental biology and science in the community have been working with the community volunteers and the Lower Chippewa Invasives Partnership to plant native trees in the Galloway Creek corridor across from our campus. This project is a continuation of our successful buckthorn removal initiative from the past couple of years. Next time you drive by NHS, check out the progress we've made in our community. Student Council would also like to invite the school board committee to come to the coronation assembly and parade on Friday, the 22nd.
All right, and next we have community communications. We have two speakers tonight. First is Josie Coleman.
I live in Nap. And members of the board. Summer. Thomas Jefferson in 1802, while writing to Brooklyn and affiliated with the Danbury Baptist Association of Connecticut, used the phrase separation of church and state. The founding fathers at the time were grappled with the government's influence over opinions, particularly inside the church. They were not concerned about the freedom of the people to have an influence on the opinion of the government. In fact, any good government system would welcome the opinions and influence of righteous, upstanding statesmen. Rather, they were concerned that the government was going to try to establish a religion. They did not want an official state church like much of Europe had. For example, England had Anglicans, Scots, Presbyterians, French, and Catholics, and so on. They said, let's keep the government out of the church. However, that all works differently seen from the other direction. The founding fathers did not want the light of the Christian worldview to be kept out of the government. In fact, any government, because it is made up of sinful mankind and because it includes such temptations as power, money, prestige, and bribery, will quickly deteriorate without the disinfectant of truth. The whole government and society would soon be in disarray. Truth would be one way to help slow down the decay process. Furthermore, as public schools came into mode, it was expected that these institutions would be built on truth. It was not considered an establishment of religion to teach a Christian worldview in our public schools. The Ten Commandments were the logical basis for the foundation of a sound education that would train our students to be well-rounded, moral, disciplined citizens. The education must be based on truth, not propaganda. Students were taught to read using the New England Truth. This was a reader based on truth telling. It was not illegal or unconstitutional or wrong in any way. It was right, it was moral, and it was true. Have you, school board members, checked out any of this year's SBMA curriculum? Does it teach truth? Are the teachers who teach it truth tellers? Has the gender policy plan been looked at over the summer? Does it teach truth? Our parents, pastors, and community should be checking to make sure that our children are being taught truth, whether about math or human sexuality or science or social studies. If teachers don't tell them truth, who will? If the school board does not oversee the curriculum, who will? Do the right thing. We want professional truth tellers in our classrooms. Thank you.
And our next speaker tonight is Mike Cooper.
There's a saying, he who pays the fiddler calls the tune. This is pretty reliable, except when it comes to government. The taxpayers pay the fiddler, but the government calls the tune. School districts are funded by property taxes, state taxes, and federal taxes. There are federal mandates and there are state mandates. But the taxpayer, the one with the kids in school, has no power to mandate. Funny how that works. And to add insult to injury, the state and federal funding is taxed away from the taxpayer as well only to be returned with strings attached. Strings like CRT and SEL in all their malignant forms, and the parents have no say in the teaching of these progressive lies. Historically, at the beginning of this nation, the Northwest Ordinance set the parameters of public schools. They are to be paid for with local taxes and controlled by local school boards who would look out for the basic education of the student. They would be taught reading, writing, math, and civics. It was believed an educated citizenry was important for the survival of the republic. Today, our students instead are indoctrinated with false, hateful history of CRT, and time is squandered usurping the role of the parent by exposing the student to social and emotional training. All mandated by bureaucrats at the state and federal departments of education, or snubbing the courses with the encouragement of the NEA. So much for local and federal. But there is a way to get back. When the founding fathers created the Constitution, one idea that they were familiar with was the power of the lesser magistrate, which will be introduced in a future time. I will leave you with some other thoughts of wisdom. As previously stated, he who pays the prisoner calls the tune. Edmund Burke had a comment which was, bad men need nothing more to compass their ends than that good men should look on and do nothing. The law of unintended consequences states that all actions or inactions have both positive and negative consequences. And there is a corollary to that, and that is the road to hell is paved with good intentions. And lastly, for those who trust the living God, there's a quote from Martin Luther. It would be better for him if a millstone were hung around his neck and were cast into the sea than he should cause one of his little ones to sin. Hopefully these thoughts of wisdom will help you to make wise and measured decisions when dealing with the misguided, aggressive influences which are being forced on our schools by the ideologues who have infested the DPI, the Department of Education, and the various legislators. Thank you.
All right, next we have revenue and expenditure report for the months ended June 2023 and August.
Okay, I'm going to start off with the June expenditures first. Each time in September, we always review the ending school year revenue and expenses for June and also August. So if we take a look at the June revenues for June 2023, overall, the general fund, we received in $42,938,311 into the general Fund 10 revenue fund. And then in Fund 21, we received in $704,306.68. And in Special Education, Fund 27, we received in a total revenue of $7,387,832.02. Some notes for the month of June was we received it in our computer aid, our high-cost transportation aid. We also made note of GASB 96, which was a change in government accounting for financial reporting of software agreements. There was a revenue added for that source, and then there was also corresponding expenditures. So the same revenue and expenditures offset each other, but nonetheless, that had to be reported on our financial statement. And then another item that impacted the June financials was the timing of the CTE incentive grant revenue. It shows twice the amount as we normally receive in, but that's because we received 2 years worth from DPI, one at the end of this school year and one we received back in September, but that was actually for the prior school year. So it looks higher, but it's really just because due to timing of receiving those funds. And then one item that is only in this school year's revenues is it's labeled other tuition, not open enrollment. That was for some summer school tuition that had been paid by a family who were actually out of district, and they had students that wanted to attend, and therefore they had, because you can't open enroll for summer school, they have to pay the tuition in order to attend. The next report we'll take a look at for is the expenditure report for June by function. And if we take a look at our general operations fund, we used or received in or had expenses up to 93.52% compared to 99.73% from the prior year. In special education, we spent 96.76% compared to 96.17%. And then food service or Fund 50, we spent 91.29% of our budget as compared to 94.08%. Again, timing of bills and the GASB 96 financial reporting of software agreements impacted our June, expenses by function. And then, let's see, we have our breakdown report for expenditures by object for all the funds combined. Year to date, we spent 96.49% of our overall budget compared to 98.65% from the prior year. Any questions regarding our June revenues or expenses? Okay, then moving
Sorry,
on.
I have just one question. So when we're looking at the expense by object versus by function, I was at first caught by the percentage of budget spent being different between those two reports, but is the distinction between, is because in the expense by object, it's all funds, whereas in the expense by function. Okay, so,
It's
okay.
all combined.
Makes sense.
Okay, and then taking a look at the revenues for month ending August 2023, we received in some local revenues in our general fund totaling $4,312.51. Nothing in our gift donation fund yet, and nothing in our special education fund, which is typical for this time of year. And then moving on to the Fund 10 expenditures by function. So far, we've expended 6.28% of our budget compared to last year at the same time was at 6.70. And then if we look at the breakdown by object, again, that's all funds, we're at 5.47% compared to 5.94%. And you may notice that the salaries were considerably higher than they were the same time last year. And that's because we did have a third payroll in August. Compared to last year, we only had 2.
I have a quick question about the expenses function from June, no, sorry, by object from June. I just noticed, so on the, so this is the one ending in June, on the debt payments lines, there's a big jump there. Is that related to the, what was the word? The defeasance payment, or is that something?
No, that's actually the recording of the Gatsby 96.
Okay, gotcha, yep.
Software agreement, and again, there is a corresponding expenditure
Okay.
in revenue.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Any other questions?
If there's no other questions on the reports, we'll move on to the monthly employment report.
So this being an agenda item is something the board sees every month, and as you can see at the beginning of the school year, it's probably the most lengthy report that you see all year. And I know I say this often, but I want to compliment again our HR department and our building principals. We've hired a terrific staff to work with our kids this year. We all know great teachers in the school district, but our hourly staff is top notch as well. So from cooks to paraeducators to supervisory aides, ESS, we just feel really good about the people we've hired and good work to everyone involved.
Thank you. Moving on to our consent agenda, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Motion by Carl, second by Angie. On the consent agenda, we have our minutes from the regular board meeting of August 14th, special board meeting of August 21st, and the annual meeting of August 21st. Financial reports, checks in the amount of $1,499,674 in cash receipts, in the amount of $96,402. No donations exceeding $1,000 for the month of August. We have certification of safety drills at Menomonie Middle School and Menomonie High School. And we have a cooperative agreement between Menomonie and Chippewa Falls School District for special education Any questions or comments? Everyone can silence their cell phones, please. Any questions or comments on the consent agenda? All right, seeing none, let's vote. Motion passes 7-0. We have nothing in our personnel consent agenda for the evening, and so we're on to discussion items. Our first discussion item tonight is the buildings and grounds annual report.
So you all know Kevin Tomaszewski is our Director of Buildings and Grounds. Certainly one of the busier employees that we have during the summer. Our building and grounds crew did a great job getting our buildings ready, but also a number of projects. So Kevin will go ahead and share with you his report.
So starting off at the top of my list, we started with some of the larger projects that we've been working on for the last year or two. Probably the largest and most visible one is the sports complex work that we've been doing. So I'm happy to say that we're lining this out, the turf is in, the bleachers are up, the building is up, the students are using the facility. We passed the inspections. Really all we're waiting on right now with that project is a couple signatures from our that we had last week. So I would estimate that'll happen in the next couple of weeks, followed by the final building, and that project will be wrapped up. Over at the middle school, we finished up the solar array project really this summer. That went live in April, and it's been producing energy since that time. And we were able to get both sand wash stations in the summer, so I was having to make that happen. Took out some pretty old failing stations and replaced them with nice new stainless fixtures. So some of the things that we have in progress right now. Over at the middle school, we're working on door replacements. We are just waiting on all supplies to get delivered and contractors middle school and do the installation. Same with the elevator project at the high school. Number 3 is going to get some updating to the equipment room. Again, just waiting on supplies for that. So those are all some of the 30-year plan projects that were approved. Moving on to some of the smaller items. Blacktop work. We did some work at Wakanda Nap and River Heights this summer. Put a little note in here for those that may not know, Wakanda is a shared use parking lot. The city of Menomonie owns actually the majority of that lot, including the entrance. We have a shared use agreement, which includes splitting the maintenance costs. At the high school, we're currently working on the capacitor. We have uses ordered in one large capacitor for a series of 10 capacitors. It's kind of difficult to explain, but much like a home appliance, when it fires on, the capacitor has stored energy which offsets that peak in demand. So we have a large one at the high school that helps feed a lot of our electric motors. So getting this back online, we're estimating about $2,200 a year. We should save at the high school to have it fully functional. Parking lot light repairs at Wakanda. Mike's got into it. Seasonal grants crew and maintenance. Food trips all there to work on some of the trails, down tree removal, things like that. Probably noticed in almost every one of my weekly updates this summer in middle school storage. We're at the end of that finally. We just need to organize a little bit and determine what's going to stay with the district and what may be offered to all of our public surplus auction. And our HVAC repairs, that kind of ties directly into the energy section. I mentioned before, the energy manager has an extensive HVAC technician background, so that's been a huge help to us. We've been able to handle a lot of the smaller repairs in-house as opposed to making service calls. Very beneficial to the maintenance department. Scheduling, something that sounds really simple, but if you think about every event that happens throughout the district, whether it's a basketball game, a meeting in material electrical hall, or something in the auditorium, we have to go into our systems and plug that information in. We found a way that we only have to do it once. We put in a special event, and after the end of the event, the system automatically reverts back to where it's supposed to be. So it essentially takes us half the time, which is a very good time saver. Curtailments and peak controls. Yes, we didn't have any this year. I think in the 6 years I've been in the district, we have one. So essentially what that is, 3 of our sites have LP tanks. We get a call, typically midwinter, long cold stretch from XL Energy. We'll have to switch over from natural gas to LP. By doing so, we get that rate. So we haven't had one of those in several years. We did have a peak control this year. Typically speaking, those are midsummer, kind of the exact opposite during the cooling season. When everybody's using their AC, the meters are spinning, XL reaches out to us, we have to cut our consumption to a predetermined level. So what we do is we shut down our chillers. That should get us where we need to be. Sometimes we would have to make some adjustments to HVAC systems, air handlers. Then we would monitor our VA just to make sure we're below our limits, which was what was kind of weird this year. We had it was Friday night during Christmas break. It was kind of the exact opposite of what we would normally expect to see. So that was actually a really easy one. There's no chillers running or buildings are empty, so we just skated right through that one without. We already had everything adjusted down as far as we could go, so it's very easy to reach. I have on page 3 just a little overview of what being in the peak control system, how we benefit as a district. So the high school being the largest building, obviously gives us the most return, but overall we're over $22,000 for 2022 in savings just on our electric bills for signing up for the system. So it may be that we are put under peak control in July when the students are on through summer programming, but it'll be a defined time. It'll be 4 hours or 6 hours. It'll be a small inconvenience for that kind of result. So I think it's something that we definitely stick with for the years. Next section, so I labeled the projects to consider. Basically, what I'm looking at here is the next thing that we'll need for the 3-year plan update. And these are some of the things I'm going to be looking into further for that January update. I think at the top of our list should be LEDs. Back in 2022, we hired lighting design solutions out of the Wausau area to come through our district. They did a complete audit of our lighting system, so we now know, in this room how many fixtures we have, how many bulbs are in this fixture, the light switches, everything in relation to lighting. So they gave us all that information and in turn gave us a suggestion of what we should have. Should we convert to LED? So the next chart shows their findings in 4 different areas: the cost of purchasing the supplies, the paybacks, the annual savings, and the amount of energy reduction. Based on the schools that are left to. So NAP has already been converted, so that's why we don't see it. So a couple things to keep in mind, whether we decide to move forward with a school or if we decide if we can find a way to move forward with the district. These are just for the supplies. These numbers are for the supplies. This project would have to go out to bid. There'd be some significant labor charges added onto these numbers. And the numbers are about a year and a half old now, so I'm sure there's been some fluctuations in the price. So it's something we need to keep looking at. I think we're going to see some good results by doing so. It's just how we pivot in years. What strategy do we take to accomplish it?
Yeah, so that payback is only based on the supply. Do you think it would double it?
I don't know for sure. We tried to bid one of these out and we didn't have sufficient bidders at that time, so I can get a chance to see, the results of the bidding process for one school. Certainly there's research out there that I can do and resources I can find those answers to.
Well, obviously, if the cost is significant, it would significantly impact the payback.
Yes.
Leave it at that.
Another thing, moving forward, we should consider putting into that plan bleacher maintenance. The middle school was put up in the 90s, bleachers were put in the 90s, they're getting to the point where they can use so much paving. And with that said, down the road, we should also consider adding a high school. There's plenty of bleachers over there. The main gym is fairly new, so there's nothing we have to really jump into there, but we have the gym, we're looking at possibly add some into the pool area. We have a large 1,000-seat capacity outside, so down the road, it's something we should keep on our radar. Then lastly, door replacements. We're working through the middle school project right now. And again, it's 6 doors, 3 frames, and all the hardware that goes along. So keeping in mind that automatic door openers are expensive, just that job alone, we're in the $80,000 range. Now, off the top of my head, both Bonds or Heights can use at least that amount of work. And then when you look at a building like the high school, it's many more doors, exterior doors that are going to need placement in the future. So I'll be working on these 3 projects, getting some better estimates, signed down for the January update. Moving on to Saturday. Sam and I were just talking. We don't talk anymore, which is kind of nice. All of my positions are filled, and I'm very happy about that. They're already not done with it. So they're seasonal employment this summer. We did similar with prior years. We had 3 seasonal mowers and 1 district painter. That generally works out pretty well for us. It's difficult at the beginning and the end when we only have 1, such as this time of year. But things generally slow down. Also, we usually manage to hold our own, keeping up. Last but not least, training. We had CISA 10 come over again right before the start of the school year to provide some safety training for the adults throughout staff this year. Questions?
Just quickly, it only came to mind, there was discussion in the past about the pool field house area needing some help. And I know we're in swim season for girls right now. I know there's a swim meet Saturday. Is there any immediate problems with the pool that need attention, or we're okay with the season we're in and all that?
No, we're hanging in there right now, and we're looking at, I think it's late March to go out to that project. Still in the beginning stages, but we are moving forward with that after the boys.
One of those things like you don't know the car's not going to work, to start driving down the road and help people drive in the pool. Just
This isn't really a question, but maybe a prompt for our next discussion is, thinking about the upcoming projects to consider, to what extent some of them, could or, could, should, or maybe couldn't or shouldn't involve, your fundraising or grant separately. I know that looking back at some of the projects from the past year, I recall off the top of my head that the Blacktop Main River Heights involves some PTO grant writing and things like that as well. So I'm just kind of curious, as we look at the 30-year capital plan, where we can think about where community support can come into that, and where it would be too much to ask.
That's good food for thought.
I should say your team does a fantastic job. I've been to a bunch of events in the last 3 weeks. Everything's clean, tidy, looks good. They're great people, doing a good job.
I was curious about the heat control period. This summer seemed really hot to me. Like, did it surprise you that we weren't subject to any during the summer?
Very much so. I actually sent out an email to the principals giving a warning. I wouldn't be surprised if one's called tomorrow. Because I think we're heating day and it's on a hot day, and surprisingly, it never came.
Because I think Dunn County Energy issued a couple of warnings and requests for reduced usage, so.
Just wanted to ask, as far as the LED upgrades are now, do you have any numbers yet to look at, energy usage reduction? Do you know, having one school converted, if that tracks true to what you're expecting?
I have not compared. We didn't track the energy bills live.
Is there any, beyond the initial communication back in August, is there anything that's still relevant about the couple hot days we had at Downsville?
Yeah, and what he was referring to is that Downsville had a geothermal system. And we had some days when we weren't able to control the temperature. And the concern from our contractor, or that's not the right word, Kevin, was that perhaps the geothermal system couldn't handle it. But actually it was our guys, Kevin and Steve, that figured it out, and really it was a faulty valve, three-way valve or something.
Yeah, between a valve and a couple of actuators, weren't functioning 100%. It was limiting the flow from the ground, which made it look like it couldn't keep up. Everything in the controls supported that theory, but we got down and actually looked at the valve. That's when I wasn't holding 100%, should have been at the time.
So we should be in good shape.
That's great to hear. It also, it speaks to your expertise and your knowledgeable staff. It's fantastic.
Any additional questions or comments for Kevin? Thank you again for the report and for all the work you do. I want to echo what Paul said. Have buildings and grounds to be proud of. Appreciate your work. All right, next up. Next up, we have our summer school.
So as Stacy Lee gets settled in, I'd just like to share appreciation for the great work of our summer school. Also, as you know, and I don't want to steal Stacy's thunder, but as you know, this year was quite expanded with the jumpstart days that we had to start the school year. And I know there was some concern coming into August, would attendance be where we hoped it would be? And we were very pleased with participation. So I think it went off as we had hoped and as we had planned. So that's very good news. But Stacy, I'll go ahead and turn it over to you with the summer program 2023 report.
Most of you were good. Most of you probably looked at the presentation that was given. Just as I'm going over it, the first slide really accentuates that we really possible to offer summer opportunities for kids, from working with Scout to the Boys and Girls Club to AIM camp to our coaching staffs. So again, you just said that we offered Jumpstart Days, so that was a new addition to our summer programming, which we had wonderful enrollment for. The numbers that Carla Lindquist and I are seeing about attendance, say it's close, very close to 95%.
Yeah, I went to every building and talked to every principal and clerical staff, and also stopped in a number of classrooms and checked on their teachers, and they felt that enrollment was typical first day of school enrollment. There might have been just a few people out on a late summer vacation or something like that, but did not get the feeling that people were staying home just to stay home.
I agree. Our 2023 enrollment numbers were impressive. As we started to make this report, you'll notice that they have made a significant increase, especially that number at the bottom with the 2,051 kids enrolling. That means that many students enrolled for at least one opportunity. So that's not even counting the kids that went to multiple programming events. So for us to hit that number is pretty impressive of what we offer. Credit recovery was back on. I'd like to thank the high school for offering all of that. We had certified teachers teaching all of those credit recovery courses, teachers that they're used to seeing at the school. They all work together in the library area, and then they would branch out. We had several students make up a lot of different coursework based on what they were able to offer from their teachers that knew the curriculum and knew what needed to be done for each student. So that was pretty impressive from our high school staff. Then I just want to put some numbers out there just because I was impressed by how many earn college credit now and course offerings that we have through CBTC. 95 students were able to earn college credit. We offered virtual and online courses as well. So some students were not in the building, but were still able to take specialized courses that might not be offered throughout the school year. the next slide where it says SDMA Summer School, the 3 DVR student employees, that was something new for this school year. So that is through voc rehab program. Those are students that are currently enrolled in our high school that probably wouldn't be successful getting a job out in the community right away without having support. And so we're starting to hire them on as paid student helpers in different classrooms. And we've had a very successful time. We had 2 students that started out just as training, and by second session, they were paid employees. They met all of the requirements. They came in with an interview with me, and it was great to see those parents so happy and the kids feel successful. So we will continue to offer that as part of our programming as well, and look for ways to incorporate students getting job skills. Busing has been wonderful. I think one of the things that we're constantly looking at is how can we make this safe for kids and how can we make it best meet. A lot of what we figured was that it needs to start 15 minutes later. The start time for my employees during the summer school, 7:30, and buses are dropping off at 7:30. And the high school is a playground to little kids if you give them too much time to eat breakfast. So just in the communication that we have with each other and doing surveys and talking with our staff, we're going to move it back 15 minutes. I think the community will like that as well, because the bus stops will be later. And my staff will be able to get there with 15 minutes to prepare and then get down and supervise. So I think that's going to be a good, smooth transition for some of those younger kids up at the high school. We're going to keep the box lunches as far as food service. It works out really well. Classes can get started in that 4th period while they're eating in the classrooms. We're going to be working with the custodial staff and not eating in those classrooms that have already been waxed floors and things like that, because the high school is used 24/7. So we're really trying to work together to make it smooth for everyone. You looked at most of the pictures, you can see kids having a good time, a wide variety of classes. I would have to say that our Makey class, some of those STEAM activities and things like that was a real big hit. We saw a lot of kids making things out of that class, and gardening for beginners was really neat what they decided. So I think we're going to keep those 2 classes, and the expressive arts and reading explorers were geared towards middle school students, so it was nice to have some different classes for that age group. The Friday fun days, again, if we try to keep it local, things that students may be able to do even without having it be a school event. So we try to keep it around Red Cedar and around Nat Pond, things like that they could do with their families. And then Joe asked me a really good question about the numbers about Summer Academy. And you can see that it jumped from 900 students to 1,400. And I think that's because we're going back to a new normal. I think we were still having some of the hesitancy to go to large group things with COVID. A lot of the students last summer were still masking. Some of the teaching staff were. There's just some hesitancy to send a child to such a big event as summer school is. If you've ever been in the building, it's not like a normal school day. There's a lot of kids and a lot of people around. I didn't feel that hesitation this year. I saw a lot of involvement, even the volunteering from high school students. I saw a lot more of that, them hanging out at the school, helping the youth. So it was a great number to see. And then we had Fine Arts Camp through AIM. That grant is being worked on and things like that. So I think we have at least another year of Fine Arts Camp. They're looking at ways to keep that because it's nice to see some of those art students that are going to be art teachers come into our district and work with some of our teaching staff. It's a good collaboration for us and also to recruit teachers to work here. So we're going to try and keep that. So that is summer school. I know I probably talked pretty quickly, but that kind of wraps it up.
Do you have a sense for how much food service went to students who are not enrolled? The free meals?
We do have a sense of that because we keep count, and it was pretty much the same people that would come in. I don't know those numbers, but food service would have that. I would say at River Heights, because I was there the first time, there was about 25 students that came in from the neighborhood. High school's a little bit different, because sometimes they have daycare, in-home daycare people come, with the kids that are at their school, that they do pick up. So that's not as easy for me to pinpoint, but it is well used, and I think it was well advertised out on the signs and things like that in the community for them to know that it was available.
Very nice report.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments about the summer school report? Thank you so much, Stacy. It was, yeah, I agree. Very nice report, and it's such a great program. Yeah. Up next, we have a discussion of process and timeline for the 2024 medical insurance review.
So last spring, we shared with the board that it was becoming pretty obvious that some fairly significant changes would be needed with the district's medical insurance plan at the renewal date of January 1, 2024. In fact, we even discussed the potential of a mid-year increase or a September 1 increase. The plan year is the calendar year, so January 1 to December 31st. And we were able to get to this point, and we feel like the decision made to keep our premiums as was until January 1 is something that was a good decision, and we still feel like it is. Leah and her team and I were monitoring every month exactly where our accounts are at, but the renewal will be more challenging this year than it has been in recent years. So we've been doing a lot of pre-work with our consultant at USI, talking over the summer, and then also we had a conference call last week in preparation for the upcoming Health Medical Committee meeting with our staff. That will be next Thursday, the 21st. In terms of how it impacts the board, we just wanted to first of all remind board members that this is an issue that's coming up. Sometimes the renewal is more of approval, certain board reviews everything to this magnitude, but when there's the potential for more change, we wanted to make sure to call it out so board members have an opportunity to do whatever research, ask whatever questions you might have throughout the process. So we've kind of laid it out in the timeline, and I appreciate Leah's work on this and helping to develop a timeline. But as you can see, we are having the Health Medical Committee meeting on the 21st, and then we're hoping to be able to bring the board offers for renewal to first look at on September 25th. It's kind of difficult because we have to wait for our consultant, and then we have to wait for the companies to provide us with different options. But we have made it clear through our strategic planning what it is that we want to look at. We want to look at trying to maintain as much choice for our employees as possible while making it affordable for them and the school district. And certainly having high quality care is something that's important to everybody. So after the board reviews on the 25th, we're hoping to have it for your consideration on October 9th. And then we would meet again with the committee. Another committee meeting could be called in between there if there's questions or if there's a need for additional collaboration on that. Otherwise, the committee will meet on the 19th. And then no matter what decision is made, we plan to have benefit presentations across so that all district employees have the information in time for the open enrollment. Open enrollment is from November 1st to November 21st, and then the effective date of the new plan year is January 1. So, we talked last spring about the possibility of high deductible plans. We've talked about a number of different options, and we will have those for the board to start looking at on the 25th. Any questions or comments or any direction the board wants to give at this point?
We're happy that Carl, you're on that committee.
I am, and I was gonna hit my mic. 100% that I can be at that meeting, so if there's another board member that could commit to be at that meeting on the 21st, it may not be a bad idea.
Is the meeting on the 21st or the 18th?
It is on the 21st, and I know I put a note in there that we're still in the process of trying to get committee members, but the meeting has now been set for the 21st.
We can coordinate that offline, but I may not be able to make that
for you or whoever is on that committee, and for Joe and Sam and me as well, one thing I'm curious about, if I remember correctly, and please correct me if I misremember, you were forecasting / guessing something like an 11-ish% increase to premiums, as I recall. And I know that, one thing one thing that's been a challenge for sure is making sure that our excellent staff is well compensated and, is paid for their excellent work. And, we had the CPI rate increase last spring, of 8.2 or 8 yeah. And I know we were in a situation last year where there were some staff, especially paras, who were basically spending their entire paycheck on premiums. It felt like, at least it felt like that, probably the numbers were good. And I want to be really careful that we don't submarine any gains we've been making based solely on health insurance increase. So I am curious, as you look at plans and talk with the consultant, if there's any way to structure the payments in a way that reduces the impact on that particular population, people who spend almost their entire paycheck on their health insurance premiums, so that we make sure that they aren't, that we don't basically, crush this benefit, which is essential for them.
Yeah, I can tell you, I wish there was a silver bullet. The cost of health insurance is high. But I appreciate what you're saying, and I think we discussed that quite a bit last spring, whether it be through QIC or the health committee or at the board level. And I think one thing we've identified is we need to have a more comprehensive menu of choice. We actually have, some choices that staff members can make depending on, how much control they want to have in terms of where they want to go. If they want to go anywhere and have a wide open network, then it is extremely expensive. I think it's 10% more on the premiums. Whereas, 2 years back, we directed our service into what's called an ACO, kind of similar to an HMO, and that's 10% less. We do have a high deductible plan available for single employees, but it's very high. The premium's very, very low, but that's not really an option for most employees. We only have a couple people on that, and that would be if it was a single person. But if you need family insurance, especially, I think we need to have some different options. Most of our insurance costs are due to a handful of high claims. And that's tricky because we certainly want to make sure that all of our people have good coverage. No matter how we do it, the cost is going to have to be spread across our group. But there still is the possibility that we could offer plans that would give people more control over their dollars. Because right now, the dollars are going to premium, and that's about it. Whereas if we looked at some sort of HSA or something like that, there could be more control for future medical expenses, things like that. So we are working at it. Again, sure the silver bullet where we can just say, we're going to keep premiums where they're at, and people keep getting the services that they're getting, but there's going to have to be some sort of change.
Yeah, unfortunately, you can't argue with an actuary, right? The numbers are.
I can.
The numbers are what they are, so.
The idea of more choices is nice because I recall I used to go to the seamstress in North Menomonie and she had a sign that said you can have it fast, good, or cheap. You have 2 of the 3, but not all 3 at once. And that's what we're talking about. If you want to have a lot of choice, it may cost you as well, or if you want to have a little choice, your cost will go down, but you still have the good, and it's the same kind of thing. It's really tough to check off all the boxes and be cheap.
And with a group of our size, if we prioritize, and we've done surveys in the past, we've done a lot of different things to try to make the decision to make as many people happy as possible. Because sometimes the more choices you make, the more expensive it can be for everyone as well. But I do think in talking with our consultant, and especially with some of the options now available, I do think there's some things we can do to provide our staff with more choice. Not so much choice where you go with your care, but choice how you handle the dollars you are currently spending for health insurance.
And yeah, and maybe I can follow up with more detailed questions later, but I'm curious, since this is a plan which is, self-funded, I wonder if we have more flexibility in how premiums are distributed as part of the compensation plans or other considerations in place. I don't know what the legal requirements are, things like that, but I'm just curious if we have more flexibility than a traditional company with a, Blue Cross plan would, because we have our self-funded design here. But I can follow up with more detail later.
Can you remind us, what is the composition of the committee?
We sent a survey out to all staff members, and typically we try to have at least one person from every employment classification involved. So at least one teacher, a number of hourly employees trying to represent different hourly classes. We also try to get representatives from different areas in the district in terms of elementary, high school, middle school. I will say we have not had a lot of takers, so we're probably going to do some recruiting. We have a lead team meeting tomorrow, and I'll be asking the principals to help us in recruiting. We have had a number of our health medical committee members who have retired over the last few years and lost a lot of institutional knowledge, and that is a concern. But this is my 10th year in the district. Lee's been here for a while now. Was it 8? And certainly Sam has been in her role for a while. So, and then also at the ASC and the business office. So we feel like we have good experience, but we really do want employee involvement with this. So we're gonna try with another recruiting effort here for the 21st. But one more thing I want to mention, just to Dave's point. I mean, we're trying to turn over every stone possible. And, what's kind of the catastrophic option, in some situations, organizations have had to say, okay, we're going to, give employees X number of dollars and you're going to get your health insurance from the exchange. I don't think we're at that point, and our consultant doesn't think we're at that point. But you're starting to see some groups in that method, and especially some of the high payments we have. The way our fund has been the last 3 years, everything's on the table.
We can follow up, or I'll follow up with Carl later, but if he cannot attend that meeting on the 21st, is there another board member who wants to volunteer now?
I believe it's at 4:00, 3:50.
Yeah, our meeting agenda here has it at 3:50.
How about if I send Jenny or I will send an email out so that people can check their calendars and get back to us? Does that sound good?
Yeah. Any additional discussion on the process and timeline for the medical insurance? Next up is the program resource reviews timeline.
So I'm going to kick this one over to Brian. Brian has established a good process that's been used for a number of years now, and he can go ahead and explain to the board what the plan is for the year.
All right, well, thank you very much. So each year, we will take time throughout the course of the school year to review different program areas for strengths, opportunities for growth, and next steps, and then to develop action plans as far as what we're going to do to build upon the strengths within those program areas and address the areas identified internally as areas of growth. This year, it may look like we're taking a little bit easier approach in that we're only evaluating one program area, and that is career and technical education. But if you take a look at career and technical education, there are actually 5 sub-areas within. So on a normal year, we'd evaluate 2 program areas, and when we go to career tech ed, that is the only program area that's up, and it is a 6-12 department. So we've started the process to put together some initial next steps and work on our timelines and get some more information when we do our strategic plan and major goal updates throughout the course of the year. But generally speaking, what will happen is each department will meet minimally 3 to 5 times, depending on need, throughout the course of the year. do some work internally, and then also do some outreach as well, and take a look at some comparable districts as well to identify the next steps that we're going to be taking a look at. Put a report together and develop an action plan, and then we bring that back as part of our end of year update to the board on the goals and activities for the weekend. Just kind of note, when we develop the timeframe, we also take a look at when the standards are reviewed and updated as well, and the CTE content area standards were under review and updated over the last year. They have not been formally adopted by the state, but they are on target to be adopted this year. And then that's something that we'll then work into our updates and requirements. We'll take a look at that. So at this point, I'll take any questions if there are any, but it's more of an informational update as to what we're going to be doing this year. So the CTE, is that only the things that are kind of in-house, or does that include reviews of like the kind of partnership relationships with CTC and those other partners?
So the short answer is we review our internal programming, but as part of that, we do take a look at what partnerships we have. As we've talked throughout the last few years, dual enrollment opportunities is a real big component of career and technical education. So we do take a look at the partnerships that we have and the opportunities with both CTC and Stout is a big partner with us in career and technical education as well. And one thing that you'll see that will come out of this is career and technical student organizations, so things like Skills USA, DACA, FBLA, FCCLA, they play a very big part in career and technical education. So I would not be surprised to me to see that some of that work is part of the program we use.
And then in the case where we're involved in partnership, will those partnerships be involved in the review process, or is it just like STMA staff involved?
Primarily we have CMA staff, but each of the content areas also has an advisory committee. So the reality is, career and technical education are those departments that, while we have a formal review cycle, they, like our other departments, do some form of informal review every year. But in CTE, they'll call upon those advisory committees throughout the year, and they will also play a large role in this process. Thanks. Yep.
Any other questions for Brian on the program review timeline? Thank you for that update. Next up, we have a discussion on policy 652.1, free admission fees.
So this is a follow-up from some of the feedback we received from staff last year during our QIC process. And one of the suggestions from our staff was that some staff members would be able to attend more district events if they were able to bring their children with them. And one of the prohibitive pieces is that our staff members get into events free, as does a guest, but it's not a family type of pass. And in talking to some of our staff members over the summer, where this really comes into play is especially if you have a young family and you want to go to an event for the first half. And, not that the cost of the tickets is that expensive, but, when you go and you're going to stay for an hour, and then you're going to spend that money to purchase a ticket for your whole family, that can be problematic. And we're also continuing to look for ways to support our staff and make our staff feel valued. I think this is one way that we can do that. Leah asked the question, what kind of budget impact would this be? We don't really have a good way to predict that, but what I can tell you, it would be negligible on a $60 million budget. So I think this is a good idea. And, when you look at the demographics of our staff also, we have a number of staff members that have young families. And if we can encourage not only our staff members to be at events, but encourage these families to be at our events, I think it's something that we should do. So you can see the recommendation for the policy revision. I don't know if any board members have any questions or concerns or suggestions.
I'm wondering if it could say, any members of the immediate household or one guest, because like I would be a person who then, like if I was still teaching, now I don't have kids or husband, but I was bringing a friend and now I can't.
I think that's a really good idea. The intent was not to try to put more limits on it. So thank you, that's a really good idea. Any other suggestions?
I think it's a great idea.
Thank you.
Yeah, I agree. I think overall it's, I mean, for everybody, it was very minimal, constantly.
I guess with that being said, hearing no objection, homecoming is next week, and a lot of times those are the events that, really bring people out. And if there's no objection from the board, we could go ahead and implement this policy change immediately, with board ratification at the next meeting. If for some reason there's an objection at that point, we could go back to the current form of the policy, but I would not want to do that without your permission.
Can I ask a question? I was gonna hold thinking that it wouldn't.
And we can-
This has nothing to do with the teaching staff. Would there be an impact or interest in extent, since this doesn't come to the board very often, this policy, active duty or active guard and reserve members, would we be willing to add them to this list? Not, and not to minimize veterans, but we say all veterans, now we're gonna really have a lot of people, well, I would qualify, all kinds of people. But if I'm an active member of the guard or reserves, or I'm here, because I'm on leave from active military service and I want to see my cousin play a basketball game or something, I don't have to have an answer to that, and I would have asked the question later, and we're gonna move it ahead today maybe, but something to think about.
I don't see that being a problem. I don't know if anybody else is concerned with that. I mean, the problem is where you turn it off, but I don't think you're talking about a big population.
So the proposed is basically that goal list of, people who may request free admission, is that list there, right? And just add to that list.
Yes. Carl, would you email me some language on this point? That'd be great. Or tell me after the meeting, just so I get it ready. Anything else on that?
So just to clarify, those changes will come to the board for official approval in 2 weeks, but in the meantime, you'll go ahead and implement them.
As long as there's not an objection.
If there's no other discussion on that policy, next up, we have planning for the 2024 State Education Convention.
That doesn't seem right, does it?
I don't know, I can't read numbers out loud for like years. I struggle.
Well, I can tell you that Jenny is already on the ball on this. She's already put reserve on a number of rooms, but we can only hold those rooms, I believe, until November 1st. So we wanted to give board members enough time. We're already in the middle of September, basically. So if you could please check your calendars and then confirm, if you haven't already, confirm with Jenny your intentions of whether or not you intend to go to the State Education Convention. So we can then either release the rooms we're not going to use or make sure that we have enough booked. But it's always a very good convention. There's a number of presenters over any topic you can imagine about public schools, and there's also some great networking opportunities. So I recognize that everyone has a lot going on. If this is something that you can swing, please let us know, and we'll make sure we provide the support for that.
The board members should follow up by email with Jenny to confirm that.
Please.
Any questions about the convention? Next, we have items related to next meeting date for committees and reports. So as was mentioned, we held a medical committee meeting here at 3:50 p.m. on September 21st. September 22nd is homecoming. There's the assembly in the morning and the parade at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, followed by the game. Special board meeting here on September 25th. In October 2nd, we have the QIC committee meeting. October 4th is the WASB regional meeting for our District 4. And folks have hopefully already emailed Jenny if they wish to attend that. That's going to be at the Ale House. Next meeting is October 9th. No school on October 13th and 16th. Diversity Committee meeting, is that happening on the 16th?
Yes, because that's still professional development day,
Oh, okay.
even though there's no school for students.
Great. So Diversity Committee meeting here on October 16th, special board meeting the 23rd, and the follow-up Health and Medical Committee meeting is next scheduled for October 30th. Any questions or anything to add about that? Entertain a motion to adjourn. Moved by Abe and Amber. Thank you.